Hello, everyone. My name is Yusuf Brooks, and I want to talk with you about Section 8 for all. Now, I'm using that term ironically. Section 8 is usually reserved for some very low income housing, and in particular, housing that is not desirable at all. But today, I'm here to persuade you for to advocate for socialized housing. So, the whole United States right now is suffering from a housing crisis. Little is being done to solve it. All the while, people are stuck paying too high for rent and are often priced out, displaced, and unhoused. We need public, state funded housing. Inflation is rocking most of the globe right now. The housing crisis is a major cause. The Federal Reserve is actually increasing the interest rates in hopes that thousands, if not millions, will lose their jobs. Families are already on the streets, hungry and precarious. One solution, knowing that our government is trying to induce a recession, is to, at the very least, allow the people who keep the city running, access to housing. Now, we may not all have suffered the pangs of hunger and poverty, but we have all seen homeless people struggling, shanty towns built and bulldozed, and the increase in prices overall. It would be a net benefit to establish a safety net for public housing. As a taxpayer and a renter who has experienced not having a place to stay, I know firsthand what the cost of our government's policies towards the working class. In a society where people cannot afford to live where they work, chaos ensues. Now let's talk about how we can prevent the chaos and do right by our home and our nations. As we dive into this topic, I need to outline some of the arguments against public housing. Many of today's mainstream economists and their funders claim that price controls and public housing are all going to be corrupt, inefficient, dirty, and dilapidated. They argue that the way Section 8 housing is will be the standard for all public housing. You may find banal platitudes like the government's inefficient, we need to rely on the invisible hand of the market. It will disincentivize developers from building new units. People won't work as hard if they don't have to worry about losing their homes and shelter if they miss one paycheck. Also, we can't afford it. These are relatively common arguments against public housing and rent control, and I will explain why I think they're wrong. Many mainstream economists either get their funding from those who benefit from austere private housing or are those same people. So in general, there is a bias in favor of a more neoliberal style economy, which is sometimes referred to by its critics as corporate welfare and austerity for the people. This will not happen if California decides to build enough units so that middle income people don't price out lower income people. And the housing units are built in areas that are poor and affluent rather than cramping all the poor people together, and creating a ghetto. It was done like this in Vienna. The invisible hand of the market has been proven to almost exclusively benefit the wealthy and to cause major recessions when left alone. Governments can be efficient if there is proper planning and funding and no corporate obstruction. For example, Vienna, Austria, like I mentioned before. Also, there are various bureaucratic systems established in France and many other countries. It works. You can take a look for yourself. You can even analyze some parts of the way the US government works. If it didn't work at all, we wouldn't have it. If the state builds new units, then we won't need to rely on the market to build them. The market is mostly building luxury units. Also, property owners have enforced single family zones in a metropolis, creating an extreme housing deficit. And people work harder and more efficiently if they have some space to breathe. Homeless people struggle to find jobs. All the market does is by doing this is enrich a few landlords. The average person pays more in rent now than they would in taxes if we use taxes to fund public housing. After all, where will the people who make the roads, the food, service live? So, in conclusion, I want to leave you with this. There will always be a detractor and counters for public housing. Just remember that so many other states in the world, and by states I mean countries, other states in the world that have done it effectively, and think about that as your landlord raises your rent by 20% because it's the market value. Are the people of Vienna more deserving of a right to actually affordable and nice public housing than us? Than your fellow citizens? Than the person who makes your food for you or cleans up after you? What if there was a world where housing could be a human right? Consider this when someone proposes a new law or another referendum is filed. Thank you.